Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Level 30 Games podcast. My name is Tom, and, we haven't done a show in a while, but we're here, and we're smiling, and we have a lot of rust to shake off, but I want to... And Joe's singing. All right, so,
Regular
hey,
podcast.
welcome, everyone. My name's Tom. We got a panel here today. Joe and Drew are on the join, and we're going to talk some video games and such, as we have been inclined to do. But just wanted to take a second to... actually, no, I want to welcome you guys first. You've been sitting, waiting patiently. Actually, we've been waiting patiently for Joe, but that's a story for a different day. How are you guys? I know. No, don't hold on me. How have you been? What's new? How's life treating you?
Oh, I guess we're going with me. I mean, life is treating me better than you're treating me. Blaming me for all the podcast troubles. I mean, I don't know. Nothing's new. I played video games and work, and nothing has changed. But I guess I finished up my backlog year in video games, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah, I think that's probably on the docket. Drew, what's going on with you?
Same, right? It's January, so nothing new comes out until about the end of the month. And picking up some backlog to make sure that I have room to grow when it comes to 2025's gaming collection.
That's very exciting. Joe, just real quick, we'll probably dabble in your backlog, but how many games did you get through in that backlog this year? Rough estimate.
Probably 5 or 6.
That's pretty impressive. I've probably
all
played
the way through too.
5 or 6 games this year. Yeah. My backlog is not obtainably possible to finish.
Same.
It's too big. But yeah. All right, cool. That's good stuff. So just wanted to do a little housekeeping before we get into some of our topics on the day. If you're rejoining our podcast, first of all, thank you. That's very exciting. We're excited to try and do this again. This was a big acquiesce on my end, that's the word of the day, to doing it full digital, and we're hoping that we can overcome some technical hurdles, so bear with us in the first few episodes as we're finding our footing here. I was always a proponent of doing this in person, but it's better to do it this way than not do it all. So we're going to give it a go, and the goal is to try and get out episodes at the end of every month, and so not to get too into the weeds, but look forward to an episode on the last Monday of every month, and hopefully then we can have some discussion after the fact. It'll be up on our YouTube channel as well as various other podcast outlets, so wherever you get your podcasts, check for it, and if you're listening to this because you saw it pop up in your feed and thought, those guys must have been dead, we're not. Life got away as it tends to. So we won't rehash too much of what's been going on that put us off it, but we're just excited to kind of relaunch and get back into the swing of things. So I guess we just can't beat around the bush. Light little topic in the news world. And I was very tempted to go back to the records, Joe, back to our early episodes when we first started this like years ago. And like one of the first podcast topics we had was, hey, we know the Switch has been out for like 3 months, but how about that Switch Pro rumor that's circulating?
I do remember that because those rumors started really early.
Oh yeah, that was back on in the school when we recorded in the school on the set.
Oh my God.
With a weird setup, and Kevin was a frequent guest, and now he's just a ghost.
Yeah, Kevin's the only one
that's
that's
okay.
dead.
Well, no, he's not dead. He's just
dead to us.
On to bigger and better things. But maybe he'll join. As you can see in my lovely graphic that I made, we got a wild card spot. So we're hoping to have some members come and join us from time to time. I know we've spoken to Mike, who is a frequent contributor in some episodes of Press Start. Ada, who used to do our news, she's looking to join as well. And then a few other people that might pop in from time to time just to fill the void and add an extra fresh voice to the panel outside of hearing from the three of us. So you may notice that reveal will come episode to episode. So it'll be a surprise each and every time, making sure that you are inclined to come back and check us out. But yeah, it was weird going back to that and thinking, man, we were talking about Switch Pro a few months after this sucker came out, and now we finally, this was not on the rundown until this afternoon because we got a Switch 2 reveal trailer last week, and I'm just curious from you folks. Drew, we'll start with you. I mean, it's a 2-minute video. What were your initial impressions, takeaway?
It's Nintendo, right? Like, what console have I not owned of Nintendo? So first off, I have to buy it because of all the IPs that they'll come out with. Second off, I'm not overly ecstatic. Like, it's a money grab in my opinion because it's more expensive and we're getting a Steam Deck in Nintendo version, right? Like, it's a bigger screen. Joy-Cons are kind of cool because they now have a mouse feature. They have that, it's not infrared, is it?
No, I think it's like an optical thing.
Yeah, an optical. So that'll be a cool new feature to use for certain games. But overall, like, the games that they announced, like, okay, we've waited for Mario Kart 9 for, what, 12 years now? Like,
and it really wasn't even an announcement. It wasn't like, hey, we're making this. It was just like, we needed to show something, so they picked Mario Kart.
Yeah, and showed off Yoshi's Burgers, where is Yoshi making the burgers, or are we eating Yoshi burgers?
I mean, there's a world in which Yoshi is making burgers made of other Yoshis, right? Like, it's possible.
2025, anything's possible.
Or maybe that track was on the other side of Moo Moo Meadows, so like all the cows just migrate over into Yoshi's diner and he's making burgers.
Soylent
We don't know.
Yoshis.
Joe, what did you think?
I kind of feel the opposite of Drew. Like, I'm excited that it isn't a big departure from the original Switch. For I guess for a number of reasons. Like, it feels more like they spent time looking at the pain points of the original Switch and saying, yeah, hey, these are the things that we need to fix to make it like to just make it what the Switch should have been, which is what every console should strive to do in some aspect, like fix the pain points of the previous generation. But it also means that I don't know, I like the idea, maybe it's just me getting older, but I like the idea that it's not a huge leap from the previous one, especially because Nintendo's known for doing gimmicky things and then screwing it up. Not every time, but it is very common for them. You know, it seems like it's every other console. Their gimmick doesn't hit as well. Like the Wii U was kind of a failure, but the original Wii had a gimmick and it wasn't a failure. So the fact that they're kind of doing the same thing hopefully means that, like, hey, we are continuing with the same thought process behind what we're doing. Like, the Switch was a success, a remarkable success. So, like, why not continue with what we've been doing? And hopefully some of the small changes, like the optical sensors on the Joy-Cons, which, like, in the immediate, I don't care about them. Like, I don't know what they're gonna do for some games. It's going to mean that, like, there's some games that the Pro Controller probably won't work for. But overall, like, I don't care about that, but I'm hoping that it is they're taking, you know, the foundation of the Switch and saying, like, here's what we built that was awesome. All we're going to do is just make it more awesome for the coming generation. That's all.
Yeah, so in that regards, does it feel like an honest successor, or does it feel more like a refresh or step up? I mean, it's not uncommon for hardware manufacturers to say, here's our PS4 Pro, or here's our Xbox incremental change that is basically the same thing. Is it fair to have that 2 moniker, or do we think that's earned?
I personally think it feels like a Pro. But again, we don't have a ton of details yet, and we've got time before we get those details. But it feels like a Pro, but at the same time, like, is it any different from going from PS1 to PS2?
That's why
I would have... Oh, go ahead, Drew.
Sorry. That's why I think it should just be called Super Nintendo Switch. Like, we're going from 16-bit era to 32-bit era. Again, a bigger screen. No new buttons, right? I mean, Super Nintendo, we had new buttons, but overall, like, it's just a souped-up version of the Switch.
There is a new button.
Yeah, there is a new button.
Yeah, on the right Joy-Con.
We don't know
right?
what it is. Yeah, they were keen to not show exactly what it's for. And I guess if you want to make an argument that an optical sensor could double as not another button per se, but certainly a different input option, could be interesting. So, I mean, look, Nintendo's doing what Nintendo's always done. Nintendo to SNES, or, even argumentatively, the GameCube to the Wii, which is similar in, graphical computation, just different inputs. And the Wii, of course, played GameCube games, but even on their handheld lines, the Game Boy to the Game Boy Color to, to the Advance, and then you had the Advance SP, and then you had the DS to the 3DS. Like every successful console they seem to have had has had a version that follows it that is a little bit safe, but obviously increases things like horsepower and computation and graphical output and all that stuff. And we don't know any of the specs of this hardware at all. But it's safe to say also that the space in handheld PC gaming has also kind of exploded a little bit. And I would argue it seems like it's quieted down, or at least it's a little less prominent than it's been over, say, the last 6 months, where, after the Steam Deck, you had your Legion Goes and your, AOC Rally or Rally, whatever, what was that? What was it? Rock Ally? Was that what it's called?
The Asus ROG Ally.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, you had a lot of competitors pop up because they realized, okay, the Switch did this thing with this underpowered hardware. Okay, people just want to play games on the go, so let's give that to them in PC form. And much like a traditional PC market, that saturation, the waters got muddied, it seemed, where I got a lot of options. They're relatively pricey. If I'm paying $800 for a portable PC, I'm just buying a laptop that's going to do a little bit more. So I think the Switch still owns that niche market, but has definitely brought it to the forefront. I just don't think the handheld portion of it is as relevant or unique as it once was. Still welcomed. I'd love to be able to take my stuff on the go, but it doesn't have the same novelty, clearly. So playing it safe, I think, might have been like the best option for them personally.
Well, so the Switch is closing in on the PS2 gap, right? When it comes to most sold consoles ever.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
And I just don't, like, obviously you're not going to match that. I don't even think you're getting half as many with a Switch 2, unless their game catalog gets that much more verbose, right? Like, there was talk a couple weeks ago I saw of originally the Switch was going to have a virtual console itself that was going to have a ton of games from the original systems, and then they ended up deciding to cut that and make it this pay virtual console that puts out a game or two every few months. Like, if they were to do that, then heck yes, you could sell just as many, right? I know you can emulate the majority of Nintendo's catalog, but so many people would want to play it on the console itself.
Yeah, and I think we overlook the fact that most people that play these games are not the people like us. Like, a large majority of that gaming percentage is, oh, it's on the system and I can play it. Great. They're not going to go out of their way to figure out emulators and all that stuff too.
That's what
so
the
I don't think you're wrong.
For.
Well, yeah, but that plays original software, right? So like
The analog? No. The Analog Pocket plays. It plays like Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, and a ton of other consoles with the right adapters, like the actual games, not ROMs.
Yeah, that's what I meant by software. Like, if you had the Analog Pocket, you need to slide a Game Boy cartridge in the back of
I
it.
get. Okay, yeah. There are supposedly, I don't have one, but supposedly there are ways to make it play ROMs, but they don't talk about that because that gets them into very muddy legal waters, and I feel like they're probably kind of treading that as it is, trying to stay out of Nintendo's sight too much.
Well, look, we know historically that if there's a screen, then and buttons, people will find a way to put games on it. I mean, Doom has been on everything, right? So, and some of those things don't even have screens. So I guess my previous statement, or buttons for that matter, yeah. So, people want to play those things. I don't know, Drew, if Switch 2 says, hey, you know what? Yeah, we're doing virtual console a la Wii 2006. Would that be an interesting prospect for you to have to repurchase those games a la carte, or would you rather them stick with the service they have now?
I'd rather have them stick with the virtual console service they have now because, right, although, like, I had a Wii and I had far too many games that just ended up becoming wasted money. And they need to really revamp the virtual console in, like, games that people would play, right? Like, I hardly ever go back to the virtual console. Maybe, like, once every few months for something. But overall, like, I would want to... Again, you could emulate it, but I'd much rather play it on, like, the original Nintendo controller or NES controller that uses Bluetooth because it feels that much better. And again, wanting to use their proprietary hardware.
All right, so before we get too lost in the weeds with the virtual console, I mean, obviously, as a reveal, we got to look at what the system looks like. We got this mouse interaction with the Joy-Cons. The color scheme has been revealed. Obviously, this thing's a little bit bigger. And we got a direct scheduled for April 2nd of this year. So kind of right after the fiscal year ends for them in Japan. So what more information are you hoping we're going to see on April 2nd that is going to point to this being a must-buy, a success, a potential failure? What else do you need to know about this that we have yet to have revealed? Joe, what comes to mind for you most prominently?
I think because we don't know too much about it, it's hard to speculate or really say what will or won't exist in it and what I'm even looking for. Because for all we know right now, it's a slightly larger Switch with a bigger screen, an extra button, and different connectors for the Joy-Cons. So I think what everybody kind of wants is probably just better graphics, or just something more powerful, but like notably more powerful. I will say it got really impressive what they were able to get the Switch to do once it's optimized. Like the fact that Tears of the Kingdom runs as well as it does, especially compared to Breath of the Wild. Like I know Breath of the Wild was a port, and that's why, but it just shows how well the like games on the Switch can run if they're optimized. But we're getting to a point where like we need less loading screens and bigger worlds, and the next generation is going to have even stronger needs for graphics and compute. So like unless we're doing streaming or something like that, we're going to need more processing power so we can keep up with whatever new consoles are also coming from Sony and from Microsoft, especially with Microsoft's like everything, or this is an Xbox initiative where they're saying you can run Xbox software on anything to stream the games. So I know they mentioned like things like DLSS and ray tracing for the new Switch, but those are things that require the developers to implement it in the first place, which is going to be extra overhead on them, but for them to actually do it. So before we actually see any benefit from it. But in addition to that, like just because it can do it doesn't mean it has the processing power to do it well. And make it worthwhile. So it might end up being a feature that only works in a handful of games, and most people turn it off in other games because it just sucks on the Switch. You know, like that possibility is always there. So I want it more powerful. I'm a person who hardly ever undocks their Switch. So as much as it would be nice to have a better screen on the device itself, because we do need to keep up, and I know people are complaining about it being an LCD screen. I like, yeah, that doesn't, for me, for my use case, it doesn't matter to me, because when I want to play on the go now, I've been putting a lot of time into my Steam Deck.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I upgraded my Switch to the Zelda OLED model, and going handheld with the OLED now has really spoiled me. Like, I was playing a game on Remote Play on my Steam Deck, and I was like, oh, it's like the final cutscene of this game. Maybe I should put it on the big screen. So I go back to my television, which is a very nice TV set. It is not an OLED, but even I was like, dang, this looks super washed out in comparison. So the screen difference is kind of a bummer. But I'm kind of with you. At this point, Like Nintendo good and Nintendo, just give me the software. I don't think I need to see, I don't care about specs of this hardware. I don't care what's under the hood because I know the Nintendo optimized games are going to be fine. I think it would be really discouraging if they came out of the gate and said, look at these games that you can play on this Nintendo console that you never have before. And they're still showing us 5-6-year-old ports of, PS4 games. Like I don't want to see that. I know Nintendo's got a lot of stuff in the oven. They're going to do a nice hybrid of, hey, here's a better look at Mario Kart 9 and maybe a 3D Mario. And sure, we're going to sizzle reel with a couple games that, maybe unexpected, but have been around for a while. Like there's some rumors that the Master Chief Collection would be coming out, and that's great. But that was a game that also came out like 11 years ago. So, the novelty of it being on Nintendo small, the novelty of playing it handheld gone. I have it on my Steam Deck. So like I do need something in the software realm to really impress because I don't think there's anything they would show where I'd go, I need to wait and see. I mean, unless the price point is astronomical, but we obviously won't get that until... Drew, you're saying $500? 5 beans? Why?
I've been seeing a bunch of articles about it. It's going to be a bit pricier, about $500. Which I don't know how they're going to get away with that when you can buy a Steam Deck for what, $350, right?
The base model Steam Deck is $400 for 256 gig LCD model.
Okay. So, I honestly, probably going to be on point close to the Switch, although I wouldn't expect Nintendo to be that generous with their internal storage. So, maybe have that. But by the same token, if they are planning on bringing over some of these bigger, high-profile games that are going to take up a lot of storage space, it's not unfathomable that they might also be generous with their storage space. At the end of the day, as a physical collector, doesn't mean too much for me. But as someone who has constantly done the hard drive shuffle with games on the PlayStation 5, it would be nice not to have to worry about, downloading 100 gigabyte games to just fill up half the hard drive space on your Switch too, to be able to play it, because you never know. Nintendo is, wonderful at having games that are in frequent rotation, but maybe you don't play all the time. So to say it's going to take 100 gigs to download Mario Kart 9, that's a game you'll revisit periodically, with friends, family, whatever. That you're not doing that every time you want to play it. You're not installing that every time you want to play it. So I don't think price is going to scare me away. I think 500 would be a little high, but I guess we'll revisit this podcast in April when we get a sense of, what this thing is going to look like and what it's going to cost. And then of course, hey, when's this date? When's it coming out? When can I give you my money? And then hopefully not feel regret.
My thing with the Switch 2 is... every console that's come out, there's been like some pilot game that like I've wanted that system for. So I'm hoping...
the killer app, they call it, right?
I'm hoping on April 2nd I hear the killer app of like Metroid Prime 4 or just something that I will absolutely buy at day one. Because I remember when N64 came out and Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was like bundled with it. And it was just like, I need to sit at Target in a line at midnight until they open so that I can buy one of these and hopefully get the gold cartridge. But same thing, like I need the killer app in order for me to buy it immediately.
Yeah, I don't think a up-resed 60 frame per second Tears of the Kingdom patch or re-release is really going to do it on this one. But I think they learned a pretty hearty lesson with the Wii U drought transitioning to the Switch, where they had big, first-party games coming out every month for what seemed like a year and a half, and we didn't go long between release. Like we ate with the Switch, so to speak, right? Like we were fed well with what was released on that system, and that was bolstered by a third-party lineup that was pretty much non-existent on Nintendo platforms up to this point. People, like the developers tried. Right? Every, like Ubisoft, notorious for, we're going to support the Switch or whatever Nintendo hardware's out, and then it doesn't sell and everyone kind of trickles away, right? Like, when was the last time we had a sports game, like a legitimate sports game on a Nintendo platform? I don't know. Does this allow us to have the return of things like a proper FIFA game, which is not the same thing reskinned every year, or hockey or 2K or Madden? I don't know. I don't know if I'm playing these games here anyway, but it would certainly bolster the ability to sell units, which they're expecting to do as they've increased their year one launch numbers for the hardware to 20 million. So they're expecting to sell upwards of 20 million of these between the last 6 months of the year, potentially. We don't know when this is coming out. Signs are pointing to September. Get a jump on the holiday early and hopefully have stock through the holiday season. You'll be the hot ticket item. I mean, that seems like a win, but we'll find out more on April 2nd. So cool. Good stuff, guys. All right. Well, speaking of moving forward, let's go back. We're in January. We just refreshed a year. We talked about getting some of our backlog done. And so, I mean, 2024 was also a pretty good year. And definitely have some things to talk about that we all liked, we all didn't like, things that we played, things that we kind of stopped playing because it's not as exciting as we once thought it was. And so kind of a year in rewind, so to speak, before we move on into episode 2, moving forward with the rest of the year in front of us. So as I just accidentally closed out of my rundown here, sorry about that, my B. These things happen with a touch mouse. So I want to start with Drew, because apparently I can't start with Joe. 2024 for you, Drew, in the gaming sphere. I mean, what are your highlights? What were some things to look back on and say, hey, if we're coming into this episode in 2025 January and like us maybe only played a handful of things, or like Joe played some things that were on the back burner for a while, what are some things that we can tell people to go back and like check out, or what were your highlights of your gaming year last year?
Well, you called it the year of RPGs, which I kind of...
It really was.
Which I played the same ones that you played, but then I added on, which kind of went into what I've been playing this month, which is Mario and Luigi Brothership. I want to like it, but it loses its charm very quickly. And I feel like the DS versions and 3DS were so much better in keeping you constantly excited because there will be some new mechanic or the story will be fun. And this one is just like, okay. I'm probably the only person that's going to say this, but I put far too much time on Star Wars Outlaws, and everyone was like complaining about the bugs and all the different things. But I'm huge into world building, and I love the Star Wars games. So when it came to like the Jedi Survivor and the Fallen Order, I've always been enthralled in that area, and I just really liked Kay and the whole playing like a Lando Calrissian type bounty hunter and having a little pet, right? Star Wars does it well where you are more compassionate to this inanimate BB-8 or animal than you are humans.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
So,
no, that's a game that I had that on my radar too. I have not played it. I wanted to play it. It falls into the trap of I got too many other things going on. This is an Ubisoft game, and the price will be cut in half in a couple months. So I don't need to do this right now. That's a game where, yeah, if it gets to $20-$30, that's a no-brain purchase right there. Even if I play it for 10 hours, I think that would be a fun time.
yeah, which it was. It was like $30 later, and I was like, that's fine, because they kept putting patches out, and I never even played the game after they patched everything that people were having problems with. But I did complete it. Final Fantasy VII, right? Rebirth. We both invested far too much time in that.
Yeah, I checked my play log on PlayStation the other day. Apparently, it was like a 96-hour runtime for me.
Same here. I was at 95.
It was probably a little bit more, but that was also a game that felt every bit of that 96 hours, I think. I mean, there are some games you blink and you don't realize how much time you sink into them. That game suffered a little bit of bloat, no?
Yeah, for sure. There was some slog every once in a while.
Yeah, there certainly was.
And then the last two I just want to mention are... I feel like every year is a year of Metroidvanias for me. Even I saw a video of a game that I'm really excited for this year, but Animal Well was a super surprise that came out of nowhere that I absolutely loved everything about it.
Yeah, that's something I really wanted to try. Like Metroidvania-esque, but like that's a game I'm told you can beat in an hour or you can beat in 10 hours and you're going to like uncover all this weird stuff with it. That was a one developer game and then published by Drew, one of our favorites. Video Game Donkey has a publishing company
Big Mode.
called Big Mode, and they put out, that was their first game, and did quite well, sold very well. It's on Steam and Switch. Was nominated for a video game award at the end of the year, which is kind of cool. But like very atmospheric, very, very moody, right?
As Donkey puts it, it's like Halo 2 meets Halo 3.
Yes, which is the quote that will be on the back of the box, infamously.
ODST.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly that. Now, I also saw that you put SMT Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance on here. Was that a game that you got into or played?
No, I played the original one. I didn't play this new revamped one. I've always liked SMTs just as much as Persona.
I've had that on my shopping list as of lately. I'm eyeing that because it's on sale pretty frequently for around $30 now, and I'm getting ready to pull the trigger. It's just a question of having just finished Persona 3, do I really want a similar game for another 60 or 70 hours? Joe, I know little lapsed in some of these titles that we're mentioning. Anything of these that stand out to you as things that at least are familiar to, like that you've come across, interested in, or a little removed because of the backlog focus?
I'm genuinely very removed from it. I didn't keep a good eye on anything that's really coming up because I was focusing on those games, but I also didn't want to. I didn't want to end up buying something because I saw something was coming out or just getting excited over a game or a series. So I just kind of stayed away from the news in general around it. So like the only thing I really knew about was Echoes of Wisdom from last year. So like, and I only picked that up a week ago and I still haven't played it.
Oh, well, you're in for a treat. It was definitely one of my highlights of the year, in addition to some other RPGs. I did finish Persona 3 last night. This was a game that came out, I think, February of 2024. And circumstantially, it took me a very long time to beat it, but enjoyed until I didn't. The last third was kind of a slog for me. Resident Evil, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was my game of the year until I played Metaphor ReFantasio. That game was fantastic. And I sunk probably 25-30 hours into Unicorn Overlord, which is a gorgeous Vanillaware game that's strategy-based, turn-based. It didn't do enough to hook me into its gameplay, but its characters and its world and its story were so good. I would encourage anyone to pick that up. And that's a great game where, you know, you can kind of go through a turn-based battle in sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, but that's a great game to kind of have on the go and just pop in and out of from time to time. Cast of characters is wild, and the music and art direction are just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I just looked it up now. Not what I expected it to look like.
It has one of the worst titles.
Based off
It's the worst name ever.
It's pretty terrible. But at least non-descriptive. Like it sounds more like it would be a more like modern silly indie game about like a marshmallowy unicorn or something.
So definitely.
But it looks like oh my god, why can't I think of? It looks like Final Fantasy Tactics mixed with a different series that I feel...
Fire Emblem? I was going to say Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem. Yeah, Fire Emblem plus Final Fantasy Tactics.
A little bit.
Which are good things.
A little bit. I mean, you deal more with like formations and building squads with individual units that you send that have different advantages and disadvantages and such. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of both of that in there. I would have wished for a little bit more interactivity in some of that, because sometimes you just move the pieces and then the battles play out, which I know is very similar to Fire Emblem, but it felt a little uninspired as the game moved on for me, so I didn't stick with it to the end, but I would still give it a strong recommendation. So like really strong RPGs definitely for the year, and I think Metaphor ended up being my game of the year. Drew, did you ever finish?
No, I actually just put it back in so that I can continue with, again, January's been a mix of Astrobot, Mario, Luigi, Metaphor, so that I'm continuing there.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me that I have also installed Astrobot and have yet to open it, but that's one of those that hopefully I'll get to as well. Just also continuing down the list of highlights, I wanted to take a second to just point out Nintendo for being weird. That was one of my highlights as well. I didn't expect in the middle of the year that we would get a Nintendo-themed alarm clock announced and then released in the same day. So guys, just so you know, my birthday is coming up in March. That's a really easy gift. If you want to get me one or two of those, that would be fantastic. I couldn't bring myself to buy it, but I know if it sat on my shelf, I'd be thrilled. So just throwing that out there. But that was kind of cool.
Do you want two so you can sell one?
No.
You want us to buy you two so you can use one as an investment? Sure, I get it.
No. I'm going to have it right here on my desk, in which there's no room, but I'll find room for it. It won't be used for its intended purpose, but I'll, I don't know, just see a little Nintendo clock and kind of be cool. Like, it's just nice that they do weird stuff like that from time to time. So, like, that's in their DNA, and I appreciate it and look forward to it. And then, as I kind of mentioned at the top of the show, just like big shout out to portable PC gaming. I feel like this year I used my Steam Deck a little bit more in the back half of the year than I did in the start. And while some of that was for a lot of remote play, because I think there's nothing better than doing a turn-based game on the PlayStation, remoted to the Steam Deck while I watch football on a Sunday. That is like a perfect Sunday for me. It really helped me get through Persona and a couple other games. It's just a nice little thing to have there. So if you can get to it, it's a cool little thing. So lots to be excited for, lots to be happy for, but there was also some big disappointments. Joe continues to be out of touch, but Drew, I'm just kind of curious here because you put Star Wars Outlaws in your, highlights, but you also have it in your disappointments with a couple asterisks there. So I need you to elaborate on that for us.
It's Ubisoft. Do I really need to elaborate from there? Like,
was this I'm pissed I bought this day one for $70?
no, I wasn't pissed. It took me a little while to get into, and I think the way they market things nowadays just really is disappointing. Like, how many Assassin's Creeds are we going to get, right? I think that's why it was a disappointment in there. It's like, I really like the game, but then it's how the developer pushes it out there. And if they don't do a good job, like, no one else is going to be playing this game but me. So it's kind of like when we go to the movies, right, and we talk about something that we're excited about, but if no one else knows about it, or everyone else is having problems but you're not, it's kind of just this, like, weird, like
you're on an island with it and you can't.
Yeah, I can't express how excited I was playing this game, like,
that no one else seemed to be playing?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, I'll give it a go. All right, I'm probably not going to give it a go. I'm starting to be more realistic with stuff like that. In fact, that was excuse me. That was my number one disappointment of 2024 is that I'm starting to have this realization that an acceptance at this point that I'll be turning 40 this year. So I understand the whole name of the channel is in question and none of it makes any sense. So we'll be level 40 games in a couple of months. But my realization, and probably to the benefit of me, is that I'm not prioritizing getting all these things or having all these experiences all the time because it's just impossible to keep up with everything that comes out all the time. And so for me to finish a game last night that I technically started 13 months ago is... That's a big moment. Like, I know that's like a weird thing to toot your horn on, but that is a game that I should have given up after 20 hours and then moved on to the next thing for 20 hours. But I really wanted to see that through. And there's even a couple games where I know, like I just mentioned, SMT5. Like, all right, hey, it's $30. I'll buy it because that's like at a price point where I would say that's what I would want to pay for this game. But it would then sit on my shelf. And I'm starting to realize that that's not a great way to be part of this landscape. And so I would much rather experience things and collect and hoard less because my backlog, I don't even know what my physical count of Switch games is, but it's well over 100 and I'm not going to play 25% of them. So that was a moment in the middle of the year where I said, is this a hobby? Like my 40-year-old crisis was, is this a hobby that I'm losing interest in? And the answer is absolutely not. I just, as life moves on, you prioritize other things, and I'm tending to prioritize some of this stuff maybe a little bit less than I would have in the past. So yeah, there's my existential crisis that I just vented to you folks. So I don't know. Listen, Drew, You're turning the big 4-0 in a couple days here. Actually, at this point, has your stance on gaming as a whole changed?
I think it's like you said, right? We have to prioritize our time better than we used to. So we have to pick and choose what we play, and
Need more time for doctor's appointments.
right, and making sure that what we invest our time in is valuable, right? Because when you were a kid, I talk about this with my friend, that when you opened up like a brand new game for Super Nintendo or N64, like you were always ready for some new experience. And as a kid, nostalgia is huge. And now, when in this new decade that we're entering, it's like you have all those experiences. So how are you going to usurp and I can't speak. Sorry. Succeed past that experience? Like, how are you going to capture that again in your life? So you really have to choose wisely. Like, do you just go with AAA games, or do you find little things like Animal Well or Balatro, like that you can really enjoy, like that gravitates towards that old nostalgia?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and that actually kind of leads me a little bit to my second disappointment of the year. It's just I thought Nintendo's overall software output was a little lackluster. Not that there weren't unique things, but I think every game that I'm about to mention is on a list of like, yeah, that game's not for Tom, and that's totally okay. I'm not saying every game needs to be for me, but that hey, like when Splatoon was a new IP, I was kind of like, I don't know what this is. No one knows what this is, but this looks wild. I'm kind of all in, and it ended up blowing up into something really cool. But now, if they said, hey, Splatoon 4 is coming out, and it's the same thing, if you look at my playtime for Splatoon 2 versus Splatoon 3, it is disproportionate by a mile, because after 5 hours of Splatoon 3, I said, I've played this game before. I'm kind of good. So Nintendo this year put out another Code Recollection, which is a collection of 2 story-based DS games, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Princess Peach Showtime, Endless Ocean, Luminous, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and then Paper Mario: A Thousand Year Door HD remake. So 1, 2, 3, 4 remakes, and then a Princess Peach game.
Yeah, and that game.
I mean, I'm glad. Yeah, and again, okay, we're 40-year-old men. That game maybe not designed for us, and that is 1,000% fine. But also more of a reason why I was able to jump into that backlog a little bit, which was kind of nice. And so, Joe, since we did hit some things off our checklist that look pretty impressive, what were some of the best games you played last year?
I'm gonna just I've got them listed here. I think I started. No, the second game I played this past year was Death's Door, which was awesome. It was so good. You just
Little crow?
You play a little crow. Yeah, that's basically a reaper, and just you follow the story. Like so you're supposed to. It's like a job, basically. Like you're as the crow, like you all have jobs, and that is to their contracts or bounties or whatever. And then you go to get your first one, and things just kind of go awry from there. And you follow the story of how like the afterlife and that whole area, that whole thing, it starts to fall apart. And you learn a lot about it. But it's a charming game. The story is very much there, but it doesn't require you to pay close attention to it if you don't want to. But it's playful. It's really good. It's like a really good like an action adventure game. It was one of those games where like the closer you get to the end, the more you start to slow down and look for things. Because you're like, I'm gonna get to the end, and that'll be it. I'm gonna be finished, and I'm gonna have to go play a different game. Because just because a game is good doesn't mean it has the replay value. And I would love to go back to it at some point, but I just wanted to stretch it out for as long as I could because it was a lot of fun. I finally came back to Hades this past year.
Oh, okay.
And I finished
So 2 games dealing with death.
Yes.
Are you trying to tell us something here, Joe?
So I got back to Hades. I finally got to the end of it. It took me like 80 something runs or something. Which I don't think is out of hand. Like, I think that's pretty average.
Too many for me.
It's a lot, but they keep it fresh. Like, it's genuinely a fun game. The amount of voice acting in that game is ridiculous. Like, to do 80 runs worth and not hear the same story, story dialogue twice is just absolutely wild. It's very impressive. And the voice acting also, like, isn't that bad. It's pretty decent.
Now, I've heard this game described as someone by the horniest game they've ever played. Does that sound like an accurate description?
Really? I disagree strongly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't think there's all that much. I don't think there's all that much of that in there. Like, I mean, you
maybe just the character
like,
designs are too lusty. I don't know. I didn't mean it in a bad way. I'm just
no, for sure. I don't think it is. Like, you've got Aphrodite, but even she's not really all like trying to get into your pants. She's just flirty, you know. So I mean, I also might just be naive. Who knows?
You're so innocent,
right? It could be that.
So
You're not naive.
innocent.
The other person was Eurydice, right? There's that story about love unrequited.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
But even that's not that's genuine love. That's not even being weird and horny. Like,
all right. Again, I'm quoting someone I don't remember saying it on some social media platform I probably don't use anymore. So
tell them to unquote themselves.
Tell them to pound sand.
I want to give my honorable mention because I had to end my backlog year a little bit early because somebody had given me a 1-month code for Game Pass. So I went and played some old games that weren't necessarily part of my backlog, but I played Solar Ash, which exists in the Hyper Light Drifter universe. The games aren't connected in any way. They just exist in the same universe. It was fun. I definitely wouldn't give it like a 10 out of 10 or anything. I'd probably give it like a 7.5 out of 10, which is still pretty good. It had a very like either N64 GameCube kind of vibe to it, where like
cool.
It was like 4 or 5 different regions to the world that you're in, but you kind of do the same thing in each one. You battle through, fight the boss. The boss has kind of the same mechanic, but for all of them, but they're just done differently. It was a fun game though.
So like Breath of the Wild.
Similar, yeah. Yeah, in that vein, but much smaller than Breath of the Wild.
Obviously.
But it was a fun game, and it was short enough that it didn't feel all that repetitive. But what really got me was the ending. The ending of the game was so emotional and so heartbreaking that I think it is worth anyone to play through the game just to get to the ending, as long as you're okay with being just miserably sad.
How long to beat? That's the question, because you just sold me on it with that last statement, but how long of a time investment are you talking here?
I don't remember exactly how many hours I put into it, but it was definitely under 40.
Wow.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say 4, and I got really excited, but 40...
It was under 4. I'm trying to see if I wrote it down.
All right, don't sweat it. If we're in that
but,
ballpark, that's okay. Solar Ash was the name of that game, if you're interested. Cool. I'm going to look into that, watch some trailers, some gameplay. If that's up my alley, that could be a cool thing to add to the list. Drew.
Well, I got 2 questions for Joe. Is Solar Ash like Elden Ring, Dark Souls depressing? Like when it comes to combat? It's like grueling?
No, not at all. The
Invincible frames, invisibility frames. Yay.
No, combat is actually not too difficult. Once you get the hang of it, it's really not that bad. Like there's also not too much variety with enemies. So once you figure out how to beat a handful of them, not too difficult to just continue that from region to region. But the game itself, not necessarily very difficult.
Okay, so on a scale of Elden Ring to Time Crisis, it's closer to Time Crisis.
I don't know. I'd consider Time Crisis pretty difficult.
What? No, you point the gun and you shoot. There's really nothing.
How many quarters do you have to pump in?
Duck Hunt?
Oh my god,
Exactly.
dollars. You just show up with Sacagawea dollars and be like, this is going to take a while. Stack them up.
How do
both guns and
how do I get just how do I hack those cards now that they use? They use cards instead of quarters and stuff at a lot of arcades.
Oh, yeah.
It's just leave it in the card reader and just keep taking money from me, guys.
I think if you just put your credit card right in, it'll just deduct every time you hit continue. That's probably a good way to do it.
That's a good way to end up in debt.
Sure
Trying
is.
to beat Time Crisis.
Trying to beat Time Crisis. All right, Drew, give us one or two games that you want to. Oh my God, so many
Is he
questions.
excited for Hades 2? It's an early release on Steam.
I am very excited for Hades 2. Yes, I'm very excited for it. I think the original was awesome. I haven't played the early access, but it's got a lot of like good reviews and good attention, and I'm not gonna play it until it comes out fully. I probably won't play it in early access, but I'm very excited for it. It's supposed to be really good.
So then that leads into my
Okay, good. So I can
There
ask
we
you.
go.
All right.
Best
Just want to make
games.
sure I'm not stepping
Look
on
at
any
that
more questions you
professional
have here.
segue.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Drew. Why don't you
because
tell us?
Tom knows I'm a glutton for punishment when it comes to
Oh, do I?
roguelikes and all those other games, and you may not call it a roguelike, but
It is.
Balatro is my game of the year, or best game that I played.
All right, I'm going to pause you right there just for a second because I watched a video on this yesterday. It's pronounced Balatro.
Balatro, sorry. Balatro.
It's
was
Latin
gonna be my question.
for jester.
Oh, nice. That makes it even.
There you- right,
That
so-
makes it even better. I'm gonna go
That's
play it
right.
right now. Anyway,
No, don't play it right now because we won't hear from you for an hour and a half. All right, tell us about Balatro.
Balatro, you manipulate a poker deck to your liking and to these jokers that cost money. So you earn money on every stake, and your job is to beat every boss blind and get through 8 rounds. And then you can go even further and unlock more. And it's reminded me of, like, my game of the year many years ago was Binding of Isaac. I put so many hours on something that every
Yes, you
every
did.
time I play it, there's something new. And, like, how can you say that with a deck of cards? Well, this man found the formula to do it. And it's,
And I think I read today he sold 5 million copies, which is really
yeah.
awesome.
And I think I was 3 of those.
Yes, and upon your suggestion, I bought it on Switch, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I played for a couple of hours, and I was like, I still don't know what I'm doing. And I'm not sure I'm playing the game correctly, but I can see the merit in what it's doing, and I can see absolutely why people go, okay, just another one more. It could be a very addicting
Yeah,
game.
and that's what I like is I can put it down and pick it up at any time. But I was teaching someone how to play it yesterday and just describing, like, there's so many little nuances with how you can do things to get the optimal score that I'm always that fan of puzzles, right? Like, how
Yeah.
can my brain keep going to better itself? And this is a puzzle that is infinitely deep, and it's just a deck of playing cards.
Now, do you think it skews in your favor someone who is a teacher of math and probably quick on the brain when it comes to doing equations and stuff? Because I feel like as someone who not my strong suit, but I can see people not wanting to figure out the odds percentages and all that stuff. Maybe it loses some appeal.
Yeah, I like the odds, but also at the same time, like, I'm not quick to be like, is this gonna get me to the stake? Like, sometimes I am, but other times I'm just like, let me just balls to the walls, go brute force it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it's all,
Roll the dice on one last discard, hoping to get the card you need.
yeah, it's a trial and error, and you really have to, like, be mindful of what you're doing. And then
I know you already mentioned.
I already mentioned Animal
Go for it.
Well, and then you mentioned Metaphor.
Yeah, Metaphor was my game of the year. Probably a second close would be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And Joe, you mentioned this earlier as a game you're hoping to get into soon. I think if I had to round out a top 3, I would throw Echoes of Wisdom in there. It was just I know, Drew, you're a little warmer on it. I just thought it was a nice, cute little Zelda adventure that really married the, traditional top-down style that we're familiar with from Link's Awakening to, like, Breath of the Wild-esque. Like, you can kind of go about it how you want to. And I thought that was kind of cool, even though there were a lot of areas where I was like, I'm just going to solve this enemy killing the same way I've done everything else. But then there were some puzzles that I'm just like, how the hell am I supposed to do this? And you forget you have things from the beginning of the game. It's really cool in that sense. I think the personality and charm is there. and it's actually a lot deeper than you would think. So if you enjoyed Link's Awakening and were put off by its obtuseness, I think this is a better entry point to get into a top-down 3D Zelda game where we've got really strong dungeons. The puzzle design is cool. It's a little bit deeper than you think it would. Like there's side quests and stuff, and the more you do, the more side quests that open. So I thought that was kind of cool. So in that world building sense, I thought it was kind of nice. Definitely one of the highlights that I played, I guess. And real quick, because we're up against the clock to a degree, give me one game that you played last year where you were like, I don't understand this hype. So what didn't work for you? We'll start with Joe.
Oh, why me?
Because.
Oh God, I'm looking at my list.
You turd.
I lost my list. There's my list. That I didn't get the hype. Everyone's gonna laugh. And this is only because I didn't get that far. The Witcher 3. And this is probably a me problem.
It's not a you problem. I tried to play this game 4 times. I couldn't do it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's such a slow start.
It is a slog.
Yeah, that like I don't know. You get an hour, even 2 hours in, and it's like, is the next 80 hours or 150 hours or whatever going to be like this? Because if so, I'm tapping out now before I get way too invested.
Yeah.
So that was the one that disappointed me the most. All
right.
That I didn't get the hype. But one that didn't have any hype but was still disappointing, Sonic Frontiers. Do not play Sonic Frontiers.
I tried playing that too. What was I playing?
Yeah, I'm good on that.
Just shovelware, just absolute garbage. It was not supposed to be a Sonic game, and they were like, we could sell a couple more copies if we change the character model to Sonic. Let's do that.
Drew, you made me play a Sonic game one day, and we didn't know what was happening half the time.
Yeah, it was one of the old ones,
I think,
right? It was like Sonic 2.
No, I think no. It was like it came out last year. I think it was Sonic Superstars.
I thought it was Mania.
No, Mania's the good one.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
This was a weird side scroller that somehow does 2-player split screen only if you're the primary, or it just shifts who's the primary character.
It was really bad. You're
Drew's
right.
like, I gotta go fast. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna open this. Nope, gone. And then it just leaves that person in the dust, and you're like, well, I guess I died. And it was bad.
There wasn't any new Super Mario Brother bubble to capture you yet.
Yes, the girlfriend bubble, as Joe likes to call it.
Let's not talk about that.
Okay, Drew, what was your biggest dud in 2024?
All right, this is a hot take because everyone loves this game, but I'm going with the Plucky Squire because
go ahead. Sorry.
It was very well done, and I liked the art direction. I liked the gameplay, but they would like introduce something and then never use it again for the rest of the game. And I like where you build upon it. Like the puzzle should get harder using things from the beginning of the game. So I think I even mentioned this to you, Tom, was like, I'm just waiting for the Plucky Squire 2 when they bundle all those things into actual puzzles.
I gotcha. I don't think that's a hot take. I think it was a perfectly acceptable 7 out of 10 game. In fact, I think that's what the scores were. Charming, yes, and I think maybe it scored a little higher based on that charm, but I don't think that's a hot take. I think the big complaint with that game was that it was really easy and didn't do much to develop those puzzles as the game went on. So I think you're right on the money there. It's kind of a bummer. I remember you were eyeing that for a while before it came out, and sorry it was a disappointment.
What I saw was in the gameplay, this is real quick, I'm sorry, is you could put in words in phrases and change the world, which I liked, and that reminded me of Baba Is You, but it didn't have the difficulty of Baba Is You, and I loved Baba Is You.
Yeah, that was a really good puzzle game. So that's a good take.
Never even heard of this.
Baba Is You, very, very good puzzle game.
No, I heard of Baba Is You. I've never heard of the Plucky Squire.
Oh, okay. Yeah, check it out. You'd watch a trailer and go, oh, that looks cute. And it was fine. It's fine, right? It's one of those games that you're like, it's fine. It's not bad. It's just fine.
Yeah.
Some of the screenshots look like Little Big Planet.
See, that's the way I feel about Astrobot. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Oh, well, when I play Astrobot, maybe we can discuss it next month. So my biggest dud of 2024 was a game that's been hyped for a couple decades now. And I don't know if you gents have played Paper Mario, A Thousand Year Door. But I have to say, coming into this game, I was really uninspired. I thought that the writing wasn't as sharp as other Paper Mario games have been. I thought it was like collectively very slow. I got tired of doing battles, and I got to a point where I was avoiding enemies because I just didn't want to go into combat. The transition scenes took too long. I got maybe 3/4 of the way through this and said, I don't need to revisit. Like, I was more frustrated at how it was playing than it wasn't even worth pushing through. So I don't know what your experience is with that, either on Switch or on the GameCube when it came out in, I think 2004, I think was its original release.
Yeah.
But that was a big disappointment for me, only because I've heard this game hyped up basically since its existence as the best Paper Mario, and I'm going to push back on that and say, not in my opinion. I did not care for it, and I would argue that Origami King, which is a Paper Mario Switch exclusive, is written so much better and is so much more interesting, and it's got cute little toads everywhere. Drew is shocked.
I'm very shocked. Origami King
Wow.
was just okay.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, listen, to each their own, right? I found it much more enjoyable. So to those folks that felt the same way, you are not alone. Say that.
According to this Reddit post, it is still the king of Mario RPGs. I mean, it's got to be true. We have nowhere else to go other than Reddit.
See,
now,
I
right?
played that on GameCube, and it doesn't pale in comparison to the N64 Paper Mario. Like, the characters are cute, right? And they have nice interactions with Mario. And
Yeah, it's just the N64 one to me was a little clunky and slow. So
yeah, I don't know.
I played a couple hours on the Switch Online, and I said, all right, I get it. I'm good. But again, it's the same exact example of, all right, I know there's a sequel out to this that's going to improve on every aspect of this game, so it makes it a little bit harder to go back to some of those, original moments, especially when Paper Mario was really supposed to be Super Mario RPG 2, and then, Nintendo pissed off Square. So that never came to be.
Anyway, let's wrap up.
Yeah, let's wrap up. So, real quick before we get out of here, we talked about 2024. Is there a game coming out in 2025 that you are like super stoked about? Something on your list where you can legitimately say, "Hey, I play a lot of stuff," or "I'm going to try not play as much stuff," or "I'm going to be more selective." Like, what's the one thing where you're like, I'm stoked for this"?
Borderlands 4.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, they put out like a teaser trailer a few months ago, and then have released a little bit of information here and there. And I'm cautiously excited for it because they screwed some stuff up with Borderlands 3, but it was still overall an enjoyable game. I have still put many hours into it, and I've put many hours into the entire series. So hopefully somebody took Randy Pitchford, said, back off, we've got this one, and decided they're going to make a better game this time. So I can't imagine it's going to be bad either way. I've had a lot of good times playing the game, so I'm excited for that
When's that set to come out?
I don't think we have a release date.
But is it 2025?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll probably
Alright.
be later this year, like November.
I can see that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be late
Okay.
because there hasn't been a ton of news about it, but it's been around. They are pushing the wish list now, if they like telling you to put it on your wish list on Steam, which I think is so dumb.
They got to wait a little bit longer because the movie bombed so bad that they probably want to distance themselves a little bit. Drew,
Yeah, I mean, the movie never really came out. They scrapped it like 10 years ago.
oh right,
So don't worry
okay,
about it.
denial, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
we're going
But
there.
yeah, comes out in 2025 for sure. It says it on their website.
Okay, cool. Drew, what
I
are you looking
thought,
forward to this year?
honestly, nothing until I watched, when we did our rundown, I watched the Game Awards, and then I was like, oh, there's a lot more than I thought. But I'm going to just say them real quick. Okami sequel. And then, because I'm a Metroidvania head, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound looks great.
It does look great, but why not Metroid 4? We know that's coming this year.
Is it?
You're just not. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's going to.
I'm not convinced. Maybe.
All right.
Maybe. And then the final thing is Split Fiction. It's
You
like,
did mention that.
good.
I don't know anything about it other than that's that game where like you buy it and you can give a copy to someone and you play it together, right? It's like a full co-op game.
That's how we get Joe to play games.
I don't play games. When did that happen?
That's how we get Joe to play current games. Yeah, current games.
Okay, well you got
That's
me
right.
there. I do remember seeing the trailer for this one, and it does look pretty cool. It looks pretty interesting.
All right, well, when Drew buys his copy, he can choose to give it to one of us or a lucky listener, and you can play with Drew online. We'll make friends.
Oh my god, that could be a giveaway.
Oh, we don't do that here because only 6 people listen. So like, it'd be weird to be like, "Thanks, Mom. Here's a copy of Split Fiction."
Well, you don't have to worry. My mom doesn't play video games.
All right.
So it
We'll
won't
just
have
get
to-
her
it won't
just
be
get her
with
to subscribe to the channel anyway. All right. Well, real quick before we get on out of here. Very excited for the Ghost of Yutai, the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, and well, it comes out in a couple weeks. I'm probably gonna wait on Civ 7. That is a big game for me, but I always get on a Steam sale for like $3. So until that happens, we'll be chipping away. I hope you enjoyed our refresh back into podcasting. Hopefully you heard something new, you had some fun and some yucks along the way, and we're going to see you next month as we get into some cadence here. So thank you for listening or watching. Please like and subscribe and tell some others to do the same, and we'll see you next time. Adios, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.